right. Hello, everyone. I think we'll get started with our next session on the Cyber General Awareness track. This presentation is titled Timely Feedback for Hands-on Cybersecurity Exercises. And so we've got Jens Mache here. And Jens teaches computer science at Lewis and Clark College in Portland. He holds several SANS GIAC cybersecurity certifications and researches educational cybersecurity platforms, including the EDU range. So thank you, Jens.
Hi and welcome. So you already heard the title, and there's going to be little slips of paper coming around. So if you have a laptop with you, you can actually follow along. We have some hands-on cybersecurity exercises, and so I want to spend some time with them and then talk about timely feedback because of the AI topic that we have at this conference. So as you get this little sheet of paper, and I think it might work on mobile as well, but it's better on a laptop, you would go to this URL, cloud.edurange.org, and then we can actually try some exercises where you ask to SSH to remotely log in to other computers and turn in some flags. It's also about other topics like changing ports and maybe with Nmap to actually see what IP addresses and ports are out there. In some levels, we're going to give you a private key and you have to use it. Grabbing is a good tool for finding the needle in the haystack, and then FTP, as we heard 2 sessions ago, are sometimes kind of nice old sites that might let you kind of steal other people's material that maybe then use. And so this is kind of a hands-on exercise. So if you game and have a laptop, or maybe try it on your device, just wait for this little sheet of paper coming around. So this is going to be then a web page. And so it looks like this when you type in just cloud.edurange.org. It asks you to log in. And so with this little sheet of paper you then would end up in a scenario page, and we only have one up. So if you click on it, it would then look like this. And so this is what I use in my classroom. And for awareness, I thought you might either watch me or try it out yourself. This will not be up for more than an hour now. But I think it would be fun if you kind of experience yourself. You can ask me questions, or you can kind of maybe then know what I'm talking about, and please interrupt me and ask me a question at the end. So this exercise, if you have the little sheet of paper and log in, gives you in the lower left some more credentials. If you are on a maybe just mobile device, click here on Web SSH, then you can do it on the left side. But I typically am going to do it in a real terminal, and so we're going to give you the kind of credentials and the commands to start on the first level. And so for this exercise, which is about SSHing, remote logging in, to getting deeper into things, and we call it SSH Inception. We often try to make a story around our exercises, and so we like the movie Inception, and so it's SSH Inception. When you clicked on this lower left, you pretty much then cut and paste into SSH, maybe here on a terminal, and that should then ask you for a password. And as often on Linux, Unix kind of things, it doesn't move if you then cut and paste your password. Other kind of questions, if you want to follow along, that is, maybe I should leave the slide up. It's cloud.edurange.org is the URL, and these are the topics we're going to talk about a little bit. And then how it looks like is you have a terminal where you try to turn in some flags, and then the learning kind of happens for the students on the web page. And you can even integrate it more, but we sometimes like it that they have a real terminal, and the main site is kind of looking like this, where you then try to learn. So there's a welcome briefing tab, and I guess because I'm not using this one here, I can make it go away. I can use the web SSH here. Students now are supposed to learn things. They're on the starting line, and it kind of tells them about IP addresses and what this game is about. And then in each other tab, they now learn certain things. For example, here they learn about the main page about SSH, and they're asked to turn in a flag. So if they did the web SSH or have the terminal open, now what they maybe type in is they type in ls, right? Kind of see what files do I have. They're listed. And there's a secret file, or a file called secret. So I could, for example, see what file type it is by typing file. and then it tells me it's a text file. So if I want to see the text inside a text file, what would be like the Unix command I could use? Like more or less or cat. And so let's say here use cat, so it's called spy if it's longer, but it's not very long. It gives me this kind of flag, and so I can go back to the instructions here and kind of see when I turn it in whether I get points for this. To actually check whether it works, I did this earlier, and so on this page now I had 15 out of 15 points, but overall there are more tabs over here, and then you can get up to 105 points. And so if people don't know about the manual pages, maybe they would read this before, but the idea is you then make progress. You're going to learn about subnets, and you're going to get to the second stop. Actually, now that I think about it, from the starting line, you want to get to the first stop. But to get to the first stop, maybe you have to now find new credentials or IP addresses to kind of SSH further into. And so pretend you're a student, or if you have students, if you're doing training in your company, or do some certifications, we hope that this kind of would be a little bit of fun. And then when you kind of understand what's going on here, I think this was about Nmap, and if I read the text here, maybe it tells me that I'm at a certain IP address, and that the next one has a different port, and so I may be gonna play with it. Are people having questions? And maybe can you play with a neighbor or yourself if you happen to have a laptop, or see whether it works on mobile? I haven't tried it. And so this is our CTF, and I gave you a little sheet of paper that have those credentials. It's hosted here, cloud.education.org. It's an educational kind of project from the National Science Foundation funded. And so you now are on this machine, and you're supposed to get to the second stop. And so I might look around. We heard some other presentations today, but maybe I'm going to use the information that I have. So they asked me to go to this IP address, and maybe if it's about SSH, I might just not read too much, too long didn't read, just like type in SSH in this IP address. But when I get back, if you can see it here, that the connection is refused. What should I do next? Change port. Okay, so you read it or maybe know about this. Here was said maybe it doesn't use the default port, which is 22 or so, and so now maybe I read the main page or know it that P is the port flag, and so if I say -P, then it uses a different port. And now if I want to double check whether this really is not a man in the middle, or I trust this with yes, now it asks me for the password. And so for now, we actually have the password, the same password as before. It's still the one kind of on the site, and so I copy and paste it. And some people like it on the web interface better. I like it better here in the terminal, so rather than going back and forth. And so it says I'm at the first stop, and then I'm going to show that I did this, may do an ls. There's a secret file again. I'm gonna kind of look into it, and I'm gonna turn in this flag. And so if you probably played CTFs before, or I'm wearing here a DEF CON shirt, maybe you're kind of familiar with this a little bit. And so this is to give you some context, kind of how it goes, that I turn this in, I get points here, 15 on this tab, overall 30 points, and then I would like to go to second stop. I would like to go deeper. And now here they want me to learn a little bit about public-private key pairs. And so I'm interested, I probably skipped one. I was on first stop, and I want to go to second stop. Now this is the next topic. And so now this time, this password doesn't work anymore, but when I look at things, now that I'm getting myself confused, in some other later levels, we have some more files here besides the secret file. And so I haven't played this in a couple days. Let's see whether I skipped something. I was thinking then, if I turned in the flag for the second one, I did skip one. So from the next level would be to now think about subnets and to actually not be told what the next IP address is, and maybe use Nmap. So thorough confusion, I skipped one level, but here you kind of have to go linear. So this is now about learning about subnets, because maybe in Nmap, if I just type the Nmap command, it seems to be a somewhat long command. If I do Nmap -H, it's probably somewhat a long kind of help page, but it probably tells me that I somewhat have to specify the targets, and I can do this either if I have a domain name, or I can kind of use those CIDR notation as it's called. I can kind of tell it how many of the bits are fixed and how many it should kind of loop over. And while I could give it like in this notation, I think a lot of people like it better if you specify how many bits are fixed. And so somewhere before, if we read this all and take our time, it tells us that we're on this subnet. And so maybe I want to now kind of scan this. And while Nmap, again, has a lot of flags, I'm not sure when I want to do just the basic one, where I just specify my target range here. And because it's 10, I also maybe first make sure they have permissions. This is on the cloud, and so I'm not getting into trouble when you use Nmap, right? There are some ethics and whatnot, but this comes back in 2 seconds, so I feel good about it. And so now I can think about what information did I get back, kind of what IP address did I come from, and what are some other ports that are open. And maybe if I eyeball this, I could see that there are some 22 ports, maybe 2 ports. This one seemed to have none of the standard 1,000 ports open. This one has 22, 22. This one has 21, so I think we get to it later. This one has 22, 22. So interesting enough, I don't see myself where I was at port 120, 123 before. But this is kind of how it goes for the students, and that one maybe gives you an idea kind of what the students are doing. I need at least typically an hour of class time if I do it like in real time with kind of in-person students, so they can work about this. Other questions? Did some people maybe follow me or try it out themselves? That now that I found maybe the next stop, and then I again turn in the secret flag, and then maybe in the next stop, then I have this private key. So I have to learn how in SSH not to wait for the password prompt, but give it the private key. And then in the next one, somehow somebody wrote down the password, but it's a big file system, so maybe I train my students or fellow employees about the grep command. It's also really helpful for log analysis and things like this. And then the next stop, now there is, I think, a decryption program, but the key for that is kind of not there anymore, but we might from Nmap find this FTP site, and so what can we do? Can we maybe see whether somebody left something open and we can get to things? And then on the final level, or almost final level, then people try to keep their secrets with some encoding cryptography, and so students have to deal with that. And then I think the last level is, while it lets you log in if you have credentials, it kind of kicks you out right away. And so students have to kind of get beyond those things. But I hope you got a little bit feeling of kind of what the CTF exercise is about. And we actually worked on this for several years. It's mainly some profs and some students working on this. So cybersecurity is complex and has many aspects, as you saw here. I confused what level was what, but also in general, there's a lot going on. And sometimes, we don't have all the prerequisites. So if we just wait until we know everything, we would wait forever. And also some students might have the prerequisites on their own or whatnot. And so what I want to talk about here is, for this timely feedback, what we've been doing over the last, I think, 2 years is we want to detect when and if each student is struggling. Because sometimes it's fun to kind of struggle because you learn, but sometimes we might be in totally wrong location. We might be fiddling with some flags, maybe for command, but it might be the wrong command. And so there can be quite some frustration that we are kind of struggling, and it turns to frustration. Wouldn't it be nice for the instructors and the coaches to know, be notified, or somewhat be told when students are struggling, when and if they're struggling, and then how would you give timely feedback and hints? So this is kind of, I want to talk a little bit more about this. And so we now, in the newest version, besides we changed also other things on the platform, we now have a chat interface that we started like last summer, and then this summer we started a hint system. And so the chat interface, so it's a little small, but looks like this. Students might type in, I'm stuck, and so then somebody, AI or instructor, can type in, what should I help you with? And then they, for example, didn't know what directory they were in or how to get back. And so and then they gave them some hint, and it kind of helped. And so with where AI comes in, or giving hints in general, that many students don't like to ask for help. I mean, they sometimes look down, or some of my colleagues even say, put a little sticky on your monitor. They give them like a green and a yellow and a red one. And while some students might self-identify, some other ones just gonna go like, oh, I'm just pretending everything's fine. And so we feel AI might help us to kind of classify then students to figure out who needs help, so that, as we say, walk around the room, if we have more than one student, to kind of see who maybe needs help when, and how we kind of use our resources. Other talks talked about human in the loop, and we do want to do this as well. If we get AI help to maybe not classify people right now, but also maybe then suggest some hints, that we want the instructor to actually vet those. And so our current interface looks like this. And now it's a little small. Let's see whether I apply it from this slide. That actually, this was not the slide I was thinking, but if I get to it, it looks like this, where whatever scenario we have, whatever group, we now here have 4 students, and the color doesn't come out perfectly, but this student seemed to be green, and this student be green because the likelihood, our prediction that they finish is pretty good, but this one is red and this one is orange, and so I might pick a student then from an interface point of view. So I picked a student, and now can maybe click on generate hint, or I can type my own, or can modify it. If I don't like it, maybe I can regenerate a hint, and I can definitely edit it, but then I would send it off. And so we have like the instructor in the loop with this interface. And so the next slide would then be, how do you do this? How do we use kind of those classifiers to know which students we might have AI help us flag? And so it's the likelihood of scenario completion that we try to predict based on the progress so far. And so we have visibility into things like commands entered, repetition of incorrect commands. So if somebody, for example, is constantly doing almost the same command lines, maybe just filling with the flags, we might then realize, oh, they need help with this command. They maybe should be reminded of there's a man page, or that, given some other hints. But it might also be that they're filling with one command, but this is totally wrong. They should be somewhere else. They should consider another command. We've seen it when people, for example, want to file transfer, but they instead did SSH, and they confused those two things. Or they were then in the file transfer program, and they thought, oh, I can use all Linux commands. I can list, and I can cat, and whatnot. And they didn't understand that, well, once you're on the FTP prompt, you then have to use kind of the commands there, whether it's get or put and things like this. And so we have a lot of data, or we have some data, and when you use classifiers like naive Bayes and support vector machines and neural network, all those things. And for the hint generation, we feel then, this is the second step, we don't actually need a large language model. A small language models seem to be fine, and so we're using right now one that uses that much, and we try to generate hints. And we heard about prompt engineering a little bit in other talks, and we're using this one, but we could use whatever. And so we feel this system that you can play with now for the next half hour is flexible for creating new exercises that we did in the past, but we do have the visibility to kind of see what students are doing, and now we want to use that for timely feedback, both for chat that the instructor can sit on the other side, but also with AI, that the AI would classify the students, maybe in those colors, but then also maybe with some interface to small language models to maybe even suggest some hints. But the instructor would be in the loop. The instructor would kind of have this maybe pop up and say, hey, do you want to send this hint to that student? And then I could kind of read this and go like, oh, this is not good, or I don't want to send this right now, or let me kind of make some changes to it. And so this is work in progress. If you're interested or want to contribute, this is my email, my first initial last name at lclark.edu. So I teach in Portland at Lewis & Clark. And if you want to use it in your classroom or for training in your company or so, we would love it. We're also going to show this off longer in different workshops coming up. So there is the Computer Science Conference next weekend in Salem, Oregon, called CCSC Northwest. Then there's B-Sides PDX, shout out for that, end of the month. And so we're going to have a longer workshop about this one if you want to be in Portland at the end of the month. And then the big computer science conference from the ACM is called SIGSI for Special Interest Group in Computer Education. That one is end of February in Pittsburgh, where we're also going to do, have accepted a tutorial. This is all funded by the National Science Foundation under those 2 grants. And that pretty much ends my slides. And so what we can do is we can play this exercise more, or I'm curious about questions and ideas how to even make this better. So it depends how you want to do it and how we collect the data. So in my class, I want to know who's who because I'm in person, so I might go there in person. What is more interesting for us is we really want to kind of see what the student is doing. And so I didn't show you all my slides now that I think about it. I was going back and forth, so running really late. I would like to, that's either to the AI giving hints or myself, I want to know kind of what the problem is. So maybe I have a known solution and I'm going to figure out how close enough are they to it, say on the command line, but I also want to see kind of what they typed in, not only on the terminal, but on the questions. Sometimes it's not just turning the flag, but I kind of say like, what commands would I use or whatnot. And then we also going to kind of use the chat for kind of what they've been asking. And so while I heard your question about a little bit about privacy, I then turned a little bit around and went like, kind of what information do we even have to maybe make then either informed decision or kind of pass it on to whatever AI like machine learning or chat generation, hint generation help. What information we have, what we can kind of use to hopefully give a good hint at the right time. So the right hint for the right student at the right time we hope to give eventually, but do we have the information? And then it's going to be through the chat interface, and then we probably give options about whether we want to see who's who, and maybe if you feed it to something like ChatGPT or so today is, yeah, do we now want to have that large language model have our student information? Someone knows what they're doing. How fast do they ask? So there are different scenarios, and actually hope that other people help us to put their own exercise they have into this platform. And I know there are other ones. One is called Dojo, and CTF D or something. And so the answer is it depends kind of how you want to do it. In this exercise, we just pretty much spin it up in the cloud, and there are containers, and if you want to use Kubernetes to put some to sleep, or give every student their own containers. So we have one exercise different from this where you do SQL injection, but if then one student kind of uses that, we only have one container for the whole class and does a drop table, they pretty much spoil the exercise or destroy it for the whole class. And so really what I want to give students their own containers, so that if they kind of not use the SQL injection to find the flag, but kind of to nuke the database, they pretty much just did it only for themselves. We have multiple exercises right now, and so the webpage is edurange.org. It's not up to date, but thank you for asking this. So edurange, so we think it's an educational cyber range, and so it has, if it comes up, the scenarios tab. And so I showed you the one that we call SSH Inception. There's one kind of how you get started or do some file wrangling, more like Unix command line things, maybe for log analysis. It's kind of good if you don't want to pay Splunk or whatever. It's good for students to maybe be able to grab an arc and do all those nice things. We have something about total recon where maybe do more reconnaissance, say with Nmap and whatnot. And we have some more like malware analysis things so far, but we're always open to you contributing your own ideas. And so that's maybe what I said, and that's what we do with some of the workshops. We let people come, and then we then use our kind of platform or even suggest how to make it better, and so that people can kind of have new scenarios. We have another 10 minutes, so we could kind of together play this some more. And so I was kind of finding those things, and I want to go to, what was it? I'm at first stop, and I want to go to second stop, right? And so I see Saturn's place, I see first stop, fourth stop, there is this anon FTP. There's third stop. So I think I want to go to second stop. And so this is then the IP address. And so to just show you to play this longer, maybe interrupt me if you have questions or want to play yourself, then don't listen to me. So I would now SSH to this one, and if I didn't pay close attention and see whether port 22 is open, I guess I could have checked it, and it is. And so now I can go to second stop, and so here we didn't say things about passwords, so I think it's still going to be the one that's default one here, but in then some later steps I have to kind of work harder to get the new passwords out. And so now here I'm at third stop. It tries to do some ASCII art, and depending on how wide your window is, you might kind of squint your eyes and see this says second stop or whatnot, but I'm not having too many windows open here, so I would then do an ls. I now see this ID_RSA, and that's when I can now talk about, oh, maybe this is a public key, but I would maybe first, again, kind of find the secret and really kind of show that I was there and kind of get the point. And so I'm on second stop, and to not get it wrong, and so I found the flag from second stop. So second stop is here. I'm going to say, I want to get some points. I want to see whether I'm good, so I'm going to turn this in here. This is how it currently works, but if you have ideas to make this better, we would love to hear it. So I got 15 out of 15 points on this page. I got 45 out of 105 in this scenario. And now for me to get to the next stop, which I wrongly said already before, is now I have to kind of learn about public-private keys a little bit, and maybe have to figure out whether I'm reading the man pages or doing some Googling or whatnot to see that I'm having this ID RSA file. Maybe I'm going to see what kind of file it is, but at the end, I think of the day, I want to give this to my SSH command. And so it seems to be a private key. I mean, if I want to look at it, is it even human readable? But students kind of should struggle a little bit, but in a good way. And so this, seems okay, but how do I now use this for my SSHing? So maybe I read the man page about SSH and kind of want to see whether I can give it a private key and what the flag would be for this. Private key maybe, I don't know. And so it says here, depending on how I scroll, that the -i in SSH, I can point it to a file. So who wants to help me what I probably want to do? So I want to go from second stop to third stop because I found this file called ID_RSA, and so probably my password doesn't work anymore, so I have to now kind of use this one here. I guess I need two things. I need to, again, or three things. I have to check whether it really is the default port. I have to check even what the IP address is of this second stop if I don't do a name resolution correctly. So maybe let's look up what was second stop, fifth, fourth, third, second. So maybe I'm going to go to this IP address. And so now I do what? Oh, let's see what port was open. So port 22 was open. I don't need the -p flag, okay? So now, and it's often that I don't talk as much, I let students struggle with it, but they do the SSH, they're going to do this in here. And now what was the flag to add a private key? -i, exactly. And so -i, and if from some directory, I can use like tab completion, I find it. And so now maybe I'm on the next stop. So now, interesting enough, it asked me still for a password. So I didn't expect this. So maybe I'm doing something wrong here. But you can play it yourself, and hopefully then on the next tab we would deal next stop with a different problem. And so here now somebody maybe wrote down the password, but it's kind of hidden in a whole bunch of file system, and so maybe grep, locate, find would be good things to learn. And it feels a little bit like a CTF or an investigation, whether you're red or blue team. And so we hope that this one is kind of useful for training, but then two, I can share with you a little bit what our ideas are for the making it timely feedback. So while there is a chat, and I just don't have, besides me, somebody on the other hand to see all this kind of chat message coming in, but then maybe I would say like, I don't know, I now use the public key, the private key, but it still asks me for a password. If I'm super stuck, blah, blah, I would type something in, and then the instructor or my teaching assistant would be on the other side and see this, or eventually we would like to have a TA here, an AI here, that would then kind of, given the information and including the chat, the command line, and the kind of question turn in that first it would suggest, kind of give colors to students so that the instructor has an idea whether people are green or yellow or red, and then maybe it would come up with some hints, but we want to have the human in the loop. So I hope it made it a little bit clear to you what our plan is to work on, and so that's kind of the slide I tried to show, that it's not working yet, but we would see kind of the students, and maybe they're anonymized, but what kind of colors they have, and then I could pick one and either write my own hint or kind of interface to some small language model, and then maybe change it or say like it's not a good one, I regenerate it, and then maybe eventually send it. Are there more questions now that you saw more or thought about it? Actually, that we're on time now, right? So actually, I filled up all the time. That's what I was doing, I guess, in the classroom. So thank you for attending. This is a work in progress, and we would always love people to either develop new scenarios or ask us more questions. And so I believe this will be recorded, and you might see us at other conferences. Maybe I see you at B-Sides. Thank you.